Hey, it's Shaves, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this week from the 7th of February to the 14th of February. Happy Valentine's Day. At first, for the video that I thought was not good. I laughed. I kind of guffawed. Not in the way I think he wanted it to, of course. MVPerry, I'm sorry to do it to this guy. 1.7 million subscriber doing his thing. I always respected the hustle and the community he's built and things like that. But this was weirdly complainy for him. I don't know. It just kind of came out of nowhere. And especially he's like, oh, now that it's Valentine's Day, let's complain about romance anime. All right, go off, King. What I hate about romance anime, and look, it is exactly what you're expecting it. Where the first complaint is they don't kiss. They don't get in a relationship until the very. He quotes it. He says they're both too long. They're both too long and too short. Where like, I don't. All right. It's all right. So my big problem with this, right? You can have problems with different genres and complain about these sorts of things, but I think it's completely toothless when you don't bring up any examples. You don't give a single example. You brought the very beginning of the video. I kind of already expected like he probably won't bring up any examples. It'll be the key, the qualifier to see where this lands. Is he actually going to call some shows out of like, why didn't they Maison Ikoku, it's 96 episodes to get together, like come on. Hasn't seen it. I don't think he's heard of Maison Ikoku. That's like the quintessential show that he's talking about here, where the MC is boring and it takes forever for them to get in a relationship, and all the things that he's talking about that are endemic. And the thing is, right, of course his fan, there's no pushback here because his fans agree with this, because this is a very common sentiment in the community. Similar to like, oh, with a lot of horror anime isn't that scary or something like that. And of course there's a bunch of these exceptions or just proving you wrong, or just, and he brings up some anime that he does like the romance in, but they're not romances in the same way, or like they're part romances, like the romance in Steins Gate, for example. But I was just saying in the beginning where he shows like two gifs of anime characters kissing. One of them was, I forget what the first one, but the other one that kind of piqued my interest was Eden of the East. And I'm like, you're using Eden of the East to represent like romance anime. I haven't seen Eden of the East, but I'm pretty sure it's not really what you go for as a romance anime type of thing. And I think it's fine if you don't really, or if you're bored by, here's the other thing that really kicked it is like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. The third, so he's like, they're too long and too short. He's annoyed that they don't get in a relationship that much. The MC is boring, and I have other things about the MC is boring, which is like, oh, of course you're not going to give any examples, and the way he depicts it is like, but then he's just like, I don't like romance anime. He just doesn't like them. And it's like, well, no wonder you're not bringing up any examples. You can't name any. You haven't seen any of them. Like, what do you, like, I don't know what you've seen. I don't know what you've seen to make this conclusion. And I don't think you have. I don't think you've actually given them much of a shot. And I understand. So here's the thing, right? I understand if you don't find that interesting, like a school drama, like if it's just taking place at school and it's just that romance and that's it. Sure. Then don't watch them. It's fine. But why complain about them in this way? If you haven't seen any, it's like, oh, I wish a lot of them were like this show. Like, if he mentioned Kari Kano as an exemption of like, I wish more shows did this, that would be fine. Or what about Ori Monogatari that does the same thing? Doesn't Ori Monogatari, they get in a relationship fairly quickly? A lot of people love that about it because it's subversive to the thing that we all get kind of frustrated about. And then like, that's fair. But like, give examples, and have some reason for where you're coming from. Otherwise you're talking out your ass, in my opinion. It doesn't, but obviously it doesn't matter because fans are like, you're right, and yeah, whatever. But like that was icing on the cake, honestly. I was like, it reminded me of like Jerry Freeman making that video about anime YouTubers, and he's like, I don't even like the anime that much, and I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, what am I watching this for? You know what I mean? But like, nothing insightful in this video, because it really is the exact same things that everybody, and maybe if it was funny, you know, if it was something else or something about it, but like I don't find his humor all that funny. I don't even really think he cracked jokes per se. Maybe he did, and I didn't register them. Like they were like so low, and they're like, was that a joke? I don't know. No, but the thing is, fucking hilarious. He brings up the boring MC thing. I'm like, this is a great opportunity to name a character that you're talking about that is boring, you know, or that is the kind of the person you're describing, because it's clear, like, otherwise it's a straw man. Otherwise this is you're making something up. Like, give an example. And he's not going to give an example because he hasn't seen any of these shows. That's the other thing. It's like, what are you doing? And it's like, I can understand people thinking Godai from Maison Ikkoku is boring. He is a very kind of straight man, kind of like, you know, kind of klutzy, can't admit things like that. But there's other elements of Maison Ikkoku that are amazing about it, that like it that adds to it. And also Godai grows as a character, you know, it's a Rumiko Takahashi work that she knows what she's doing, and the character actually does grow, and it's a reason he's like this and everything. It makes you want to root for him anyway. But it's like, I can understand where you're kind of, like, he mentions like the even if it's like a reverse harem, the girl can be boring. Name a reverse harem that's like, I mean, I could probably read, what was it, Redread? Not Redread, that's like the Abe work. There was one that came out like 2 years ago that's like a steampunky thing. I did watch it though. What was the other one? I've seen a couple of these because like I'm a big Oron fan, and so like I dig reverse harems. I think they're fun. But I literally can't even remember the names because they were just that forgettable. You know, and part of it, yeah, was because there wasn't anything to the main character to be memorable, you know? I can't remember it. Norn 9 was one of them. Norn 9. I can't even remember what the girl was like. I'm pretty sure it was a girl protagonist. I think it was a reverse harem. I can't even remember it. You know, it's because they don't have much to them. They're blank slates, and I get that, right? And that's where he's coming from in that argument. And it's like, okay, well, give that example. And I'm like, sure, then that's perfectly fine. And then you could always get the counter, say, like, I wish there was more stuff like Toradora, or like Oron, or, you know, he actually mentions Fruits Basket at the end, where he's like, if you want to watch Fruits Basket where the girl dates the cat and the rat, sure. And he just kind of, yeah, of course. Of course you're gonna the one interesting twist about it, and you're gonna poke it out of that. Okay. You know, yeah, I don't know. But the funny fucking thing is that what is he showing in these videos? What is he showing if he's not giving any examples? What could he possibly? So the reason he's not able to give any examples is because he just draws this main character. He just draws them, and he has his own art style and stuff, and it's cute. But he just has that character, and he's literally making it up, right? And he also shows a different character, and I'm pretty sure it's a fan edit of a character from Doki Doki Literature Club. The main guy character in Doki Doki Literature Club, does he ever have a visual? I have not played that game, but like the way that picture looked, it looks like somebody like created that as a fan, like a fan edit. And so like the character doesn't even exist. Like that you're creating out of thin air, right? It's like, what do you, you know, and maybe I'm getting too hot and bothered by this kind of video. Like it's, you know, but like this is just what I'm talking about. It's just, I don't know what am I talking about? I mean, if you're going to complain about anime YouTube, I think you could, you know, these are certain things that like, if it doesn't have any substance to it and things like that, but like the whole misinformation, I just saw a post, somebody was dunking on not the Anime Man, but Veridis Joe, Joey, about how like he references, he was talking to somebody else, and he's like, yeah, because like Ano got a bunch of death threats from Evangelion, and somebody quote tweeted him like, "Oh, misinformation about Ano not getting death threats and putting them in his movie." Like, do you understand, like, where's, sure, maybe it's overblown, maybe there's something like, oh, it's actually not that big of a deal or something like that, but can you understand where somebody gets that idea from? Because Ano puts the death threats and the graffiti and vandalism on the studio that somebody did. Like, their argument was like, I'm sorry to subtweet a bunch of this, and it's a bunch of Twitter drama or whatever, and I'm going to, it's all over again. Happens every fucking time, I guess. But like, they were saying, it's like, oh, every show gets something like this. They get death threats. And no, I don't think they do. And I don't think they got it on the degree that Evangelion did, especially with the choices that they made. Of course they're going to, like, I don't think they deserve it. Nobody deserves death threats, obviously. But, like, it's no shock that they got death threats and their studio got vandalized. Does that happen that often? That the studio gets vandalized for that? Not that, I don't think so. I personally, maybe that's true. Okay. But like, can you understand why somebody would reference that? And like, that's kind of a significant deal because they put it in the end of Evangelion movie? Anyway, that's not, I was just like, AniTubers misinformation. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Again? And yeah, meanwhile, it's like 1.7 million subscribers, like, I hate romance anime. And it's just making shit up. Like, I don't disagree with some of these points. I can understand people, like, they come from somewhere, right? But where? Where exactly? We should talk about that. You know? We should actually, like, engage with these shows in good faith. And not just make up something and completely throw shade on an entire genre of anime. You know what I mean? That's just what I don't know. Maybe I'm probably just being too hot and bothered about this. Yeah. No, well. Weird video. It thankfully was short at least, I guess. But yeah, I didn't think it was very good. I got a request video from Arigato. They wanted me to talk about this PicotheSpicyWarlord video about Yotsuba, the greatest manga of the 21st century. This came out a couple of months ago. And, you know, I haven't read Yotsuba myself, but of course I've heard of Yotsuba. You know, everyone hears and talks about it. It's a good video. You know, I don't have too much to say about it. It's a very big video, and I think he is very thorough about describing the events and the different characters and things like that. I liked going into the some of the community aspects with like referencing a lot of the memes and a lot of the videos and creations that fans have created over the time. Creations people have created over the years. Talking about a little bit of fan discourse of like the art style of like, oh, it's fallen off in terms of the art style. I think it was interesting that he addressed that and gave his perspective about it, and talked a lot and pretty much covered everything that I was interested about Yotsuba in terms of like, oh, why isn't there an anime and things like that. Being pretty even-handed about it and not like fully buying into because the author didn't like the Azumanga Daioh adaptation. That doesn't seem to be a direct source about that. But talking broadly about other things of the, you know, he does the idiosyncratic nature of the thing, and Pico was like, yeah, I mean, it could still work, you know. And he also just would like anime would be great if for any reason to get the story to a broader audience, because it's true. As much as, you know, manga readers don't want to admit it, if a series gets an anime, it gets a whole lot more eyeballs on it and it becomes incredibly more prolific and popular, and more people get to enjoy this story. I don't see the problem with that, you know, and it's a special thing or something, and maybe it brings more shitty people into it, whatever. But like, ultimately it gets broader reach and more people get into it and more people like it. And I think that's great. And I think that's kind of where Pico would be coming from, where it's like, this is why it would be great if it gets an anime, if anything. Although I would imagine the approach that I'm not like an anime, like working in the anime industry, but if I was in their position in terms of adapting Yotsuba and trying to get the author on board, because it seems like the reason is the author doesn't want to. If the author was involved very intimately throughout the whole process, and they don't adapt anything, they do original stories with the Yotsuba characters and everything like that, with the author's involvement. I think would be very smart, because it gets, you're able to get all those benefits with anime, without while avoiding comparisons. I think the worst thing with adapting manga into anime is comparing and looking closely and nitpicking and stronger or weaker, whatever, and preferences and things like that. If there's no bullshit like that, and it's just, this is the Yotsuba anime and this is the Yotsuba manga, and they go hand, if you want more of these stories, you can get more of them in the manga form, and everyone's happy, I imagine. When the moment you start adapting something, it's going to get like fucking comparisons, of course, especially for something like Yotsuba, where people are so this is their favorite manga for some of them, or one of their favorites, and they've probably read it multiple times, not even just the first time through. This seems like the kind of manga that you read over and over again, because it has the same sort of illicit fun feelings about it, and you can open a random chapter and things like that. Yeah, it's really impressive with the editing in terms of the vast amount of material that he's going through. It doesn't feel like anything was repeated all that much. There was a lot of edits that I think were really fun. That I couldn't tell were original to him or something he took from 4chan or the internet or something like that. And that blend was really great, because that just means that he's really into, like, he's really like coalesced with them basically, and really coming from a major fan perspective, and really chanting and loving the piss out of this manga, which is great. I really appreciate it, and this is the kind of perspective I love to see with these types of videos, and not something where like fair and balanced, or fuck that, dude. Unless you're being negative, in which case, you know how it is. You know how it is with me. It's really great. I really enjoyed it. I'm still gonna hold out for an anime personally. I'm not a manga person. I would also hold out, like, I did like his perspective was interesting, of like, it was simultaneously of like, with waiting for it to put out a new chapter, because it's still ongoing, but the apparently the author kind of just puts out a chapter whenever he wants, and there's no rhythm to when it comes out. Basically, it's kind of permanent hiatus sort of thing. But like, the idea of the Yotsuba will end at some point, and wrestling with the negative feelings of that, I guess, as well as the annoying feel of waiting the whole time. But he makes a good argument about how it's like, I feel bad for the people that wait for it to finish, and then they'll watch it, they'll read all of it once, sort of thing, and like wait for it to be done, sort of thing, because it's not that kind of series. It's the kind of series where you would catch up and then wait a couple months, and then suddenly it's a new chapter, and then you get this dose of dopamine, basically. And it's like, and you experience her growing up in real time almost. So I understand that, although it's not real time at this point. It's like Arthur, where she's not aging. She's aging a little bit, kind of noticeably, slightly, but it's been 18 years. I mean, but it's the same thing. Actually, it's really interesting. It does remind me of Arthur in the same way, where, not that I watch Arthur for it being like cute in the same way. That's certainly not why I'm watching it. With Arthur in particular, I think it's similar in the same way of like watching the characters grow up, as well as just seeing more of them, because you grow to endear them a lot. And I mean, Arthur's kind of a different beast, where it's just more funny and insightful, rather than like funny and cute and like wholesome, and vicariously being her dad or something, which is something he describes in this. Definitely not the case with Arthur in the same way. But yeah, it kind of, it's a similar nostalgic of like, and not even like the nostalgic in the same way of like, although he does bring that up, where it's just like, oh, I've been reading this for so long type of thing, and it almost becomes nostalgic in a way. Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I hope there's enough insight there. It's a good video. I think it kind of felt its length a little bit, because there was some things where, even though the visuals weren't very repeated, I felt like he was repeating his points a couple of times. But in the same way, it just feels very thorough, in a way you would want it to be, hopefully, in this kind of definitive type of video of sorts. And no, it's great. I really enjoyed it. It's really good. Thank you for requesting that. All right, and now for some videos I thought were decent. You're pretty good. And the first one I wanted to start with is kind of on the inverse of MVPerry. It was a HIDIVE put out a short video of top 7 cutest anime crushes on HIDIVE, and these are 7 different titles that are romance oriented, that are either love triangles or different matchups and stuff, and they're talking about their relationships a little bit and the show as a whole. I think the kind of the aesthetic of this might not be for everybody, because it's very simple clip selection, and then the narrator here, I don't know who exactly it is, but definitely seems to be a voice actor of some kind, like a professional voice actor, because the delivery is incredibly endearing, sappy almost, very bubbly, and it can come off a little artificial, perhaps, like a little more staged, like cutest couples, and I can understand people being turned off by that. I understand, but I think it's just kind of endearing, actually. I just thought it was kind of fitting with how kind of cheesy and the subject matter is just very lovey-dovey anyway. So I think it kind of worked out. And she's describing each of these shows in kind of a good detail, and the picks are good. I think the number 1 choice is a good choice as well. It was reminding me of with MVPerry's video of Ore Monogatari. It's like that's a great counterexample to what you're talking about. The other thing about MVPerry's video that's just disappointing, where he mentions filler, about that idea of oh, will they, won't they, and the rest of it's filler. It's like, no, let's stop getting that into our heads, that anything that doesn't directly move the plot forward is fucking filler. It's just not. Jesus Christ. Do you understand the idea, the concept of moment-to-moment enjoyment and character interactions? Just they go to the zoo, and that's fun, because you see the different characters at play and their dynamics and things, and maybe something happens, a little conflict, A plot, B plot, act 1, 2, 3 in just one episode, and that's the episode. And then you move, what do you expect? What the fuck are you expecting? Anyway, literally just the point is that it's fun to watch these characters and interact, and it's good environments, and the animation's lovely, and the music and the fucking, that's what you're watching this for. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Yikes. Anyway, but I get it if you started with shonen anime and the plot's really such a big deal, and the driving narrative of it, I understand. Okay. Otherwise, come on, man. But no, I enjoyed it, and I think it's just in time for Valentine's Day. I understand being very sappy, or it's a little adverse, but it worked for me, I think. And again, it's a positive, it's constructive, it's recommending you these shows that are on their service, and maybe that's a little corporate for people, but give them a break. It's not like it's reaching that many people anyway. It's okay. Whatever. I enjoyed it though. Great job, corporation. that somebody made. People made this. It's not just a big soulless conglomerate or something like that. Okay, people made this, and it's I'm happy they did. They don't have to, but they did. That was nice. Another corporation channel, Netflix Anime, they put out this video about what it's like to work at Netflix, and it's part of the Enco show with their VTuber. And they're interviewing one of the employees that works in the PR for Netflix Japan, and it's just a conversation with the two of them, and they're coworkers, and they seem kind of like friends IRL of sorts, and they're describing certain things like the office environment they're in, and the kind of the day-to-day moments and things. I don't think you get a whole lot of insight in the same way, because it makes sense. They're under NDAs and things like that. You can't directly talk about some of these stuff that would be potentially interesting, maybe. But I do like that they kind of make it more down to earth, and they're really chuckling with each other a lot of the time, and they're just kind of like, they're just having a regular conversation and stuff. And the interview questions are not coming from Enko necessarily; they're coming from one of the other staff people or whatever, and it's being directed to both of them, so they're both giving their perspective. Like, Enko isn't really the host as much as she is a co-employee of this other person, and the two of them are working together, and both sharing their experiences in different ways. So I mean, I thought it was nice, and it's all in Japanese, and you just have to put like YouTube closed captions on, which I think is a nice approach as well. I much prefer that in these kinds of videos over dubbed. I just wish they were subtitled, or closed captions is nice. Great approach, and yeah, I think it was really fun and nice to hear. It's not the most insightful thing ever, but I liked it. It was cool. Sloan The Otaku has a new series going on with spending a day with an anime tattoo artist, which is kind of going on that same. Obviously, the first thing I'm thinking of is stuff that Connor was making about wrestlers and voice actors and different parts of the Japanese culture. But Sloan, doesn't have like fucking Kadokawa resources and stuff, and so she's making this on her own. And so she's getting a tattoo of Akira from After the Rain, which is great taste, really awesome. And through that process, and you watching that, she's interviewing the tattoo artist of like, why anime? What are some of your inspirations? I like the inspirations one because it's not like anime inspirations; it's other tattoo artists' inspirations. I like the question of like, what part of the body do you most like? Do you most enjoy putting tattoos on? He's like, oh, that's a good question, and things like that. I can tell like Sloan is new to it, and so it's a matter of kind of figuring out what to show the audience and how to present it in a polished way. I really don't want to. I don't want to spend too much time trying to draw comparisons with Connor's approach, because they're different creators and there can be different approaches to this. But there were certain things like the audio quality was like you couldn't quite understand sometimes, and of what they were talking about, and that's obviously also unfortunate because like they both have to wear masks. If they potentially did this outside or in an environment where they could be unmasked, or include subtitles perhaps of because it's hard to make out for some of the questions, which inevitably kind of just makes it like you're, as a viewer, you kind of check out a little more. You're not as like paying attention as much. But that just is what it is, and it's just you can't expect like the fucking clip-on mics and things like that Connor has, and all these other resources that he has, of course. So I think for what she has, I think it's really interesting, and I'm happy she did it, and branching out into doing different kinds of content. Again, I like the questions, and I like the kind of insight. I was like, when you get a tattoo, you need to have plenty of water and full meal so you don't get unconscious while you're tattooing, and things like that. Yeah, the stuff I really enjoyed. It was interesting. So it was great. It was great to see that from her. Kero Riripaddo. This is the first time I'm watching a video of his that is analytical, like an essay type, and not interviewing somebody else or a clip from one of his interviews, which is mostly what it seems what he does on his channel a lot of the time. But this is Blood on the Tracks is a masterpiece, and he does a lot of editing here, and he does it. It's not too often, I don't think, where you have a manga video where he's doing as much of these like moving panels around and kind of making it an aesthetic experience, as well as including his face, which he has like the his presentation is similar to mine, where it's like straight up in front of and talking right at the camera lens, and it can sometimes be a little uncanny, and he uses that to some effect with this kind of horror thriller type manga, and kind of doing effects on his face and little voice warblings and things like that, kind of making it a little creepy, which is interesting. And I think it was a little long. I think he does take a long time going through each story beat, pretty much. It felt like a lot of the story beats, and he was trying to summarize a lot of it, which I felt was a little cumbersome at times, especially when like the manga, it doesn't have that much visual variety to it, it seems, at least from what I was telling from the video. It's a lot of like character shots, like headshots, and the same character, and the designs aren't that different from each other. Like there's no, it's kind of realistic, so it's fairly plain in that way, I guess. So a lot of the visuals kind of bleeded together for me a lot of the time. But his narration was really compelling, and you weren't really sure of what his take would be on each of these stories, because he would give his opinion about it. He's like, this is a weaker part of the story, and da 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 da, and this is when it gets really good, and this part's here. And so that was pretty compelling. I mean, you know, I think it was hard to digest all of it, especially with how long it was. I think if there was places where you could cut or get things a little more succinct, I guess, or emphasize a little stronger and focus on certain scenes and things like that. There were certain scenes that he does focus on in that way, but there was so much of it that it just, you know, especially with the visual variety. I do like that he spiced it up a lot with his face and the face cam and things, because again, the idea with face cam and manga, I hardly ever see that, which is really interesting, I think. Yeah, so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the video a good deal. I think he's pretty good at it, about this kind of content. I'm looking forward to more things, especially when it's not as much of a review or trying to prove this as a masterpiece or a flawed masterpiece in this instance. If he was trying to prove a particular point or explore this idea in a particular way, I think that would be really interesting. And he's a really insightful, thoughtful guy, so I think he could definitely do that, talking more general topics. But otherwise, I really enjoyed the video. It was really good. Okay, and now what I thought were the best videos of the week. The ones where I thought were the best videos of the week. Yeah. Yes. The first one's from Ygg Studio. What is the best looking anime? And she put out like a YouTube community tab, being like, what is the best looking anime? And people would respond to that. And she tallied a lot. The way she determined it was that she wrote all of them down, and any of the duplicates she listed like as a second one, or seconded or thirded of that. And so the 17 that she decided to talk about were those ones that have the most kind of consensus votes and things like that. And she was giving a lot of her like, yes in this way and not so much this other way, or I disagree here and there, about like Redline, for example, which was interesting because a lot of people, that was like the second highest consensus. And she was giving her kind of like, yes, but the backgrounds are not the most amazing in this one, or whatever. There was one instance, what was it, where like I was annoyed when she said that like Nausicaa, yes, is a great set, but it's not a complete story. It's not telling a complete, like that doesn't have to do with it being the best looking. Does it have to be a complete adaptation for it to be it? Come on. And also, Nausicaa is a complete story. Literally, like, I get the manga has more material to it, but you think of the ending of the Nausicaa manga versus the ending of the Nausicaa anime, in my opinion, they're kind of similar. I kind of think it's a complete story either way. Just saying. Anyway, but otherwise, I really liked this, and I liked the presentation as well. Where again, it's one take. Are you kidding me? Seemingly one take. Maybe it's not quite one take, but like she just goes off and like describing each of them and going through, yeah. And then in the background, there's like a kind of a shitty green, like not really ironed or kind of like thrown together green screen, and it's not like very pristine. Showing the clips, but the clips are being shown, and it's a very deliberate, distinct aesthetic to it, which I enjoyed. I personally enjoyed it for listening as a podcast mostly, and having the video kind of play on my phone while I did my editing for my next video. I appreciated. Well, I needed to do, like, the editing I was doing is very repetitive and not needing to listen to audio or anything, so I appreciated that as something to listen to. But yeah, I mean, I really love the topic. I do think there was a little bits in here and there where like you're factoring into story where it has to do like, and also with Monogatari where it's like, oh, it doesn't have a broad appeal, and it's like, is that what we're going for? Is because I guess that would make sense, because we're trying to go for something as objective as possible. We need to have a broader thing, but like because Monogatari has panty shots and like is sexual in nature, that brings it down a couple points as being not the most beautiful looking. That's interesting. That's an interesting take. I don't fully know if I agree with that. Because I mean, Jesus, fucking Belladonna of Sadness is, you know, I think there's other things you can say about Belladonna, like bringing it down a few points for whatever reason. But like if it being sexual, would that be one of the things? Like, yeah, it's sexual. It's not the best looking because maybe that's not quite what you're saying. But you know, that's just something that kind of came across to me. I was like, huh, that's an interesting take. Again, with the continuity, with the telling a complete story, it's like really, and to me at least, I'm like, that seems weird. Kind of a different take, but also I do think there was a little bit addressed with particular creators, like the fact that like Amano is attached to an anime already kind of brings it up a couple points. Like you bring up 1001 Nights and Angel's Egg and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, but like there's other titles where it's like, you know, the correlation of talent is where I was coming from. I did post Ashino Joe 2 and I was the only one that said that apparently, because I saw the list and I was like the only one who said anything about that one. And fair, I understand. It's because not a lot of people have seen it. You gotta be saying no, but I mean definitely my approach was just that like the track record of these particular directors, these particular creators, where Sugino is one of the most important and prolific and best character designers in the medium. Dazaki, one of the best directors. Kazuo Oga, Ghibli background director, you know, the art director for a lot of the Ghibli films, and coming out of the school of Shichiro Kobayashi, who does work on Joe 2 movie. So it does have some backgrounds in that, but like it's kind of a similar idea. And then yeah, so I kind of come from that direction in terms of like the staff on display, and then obviously the execution is you know, that's part of it. But also the visual inventiveness as part of the one of the criteria, which is why Space Dandy was your pick for the best looking, is the pure versatility and variety on display. And of course the execution is there as well. And you can make the same argument that I'm making about Joe 2 with Space Dandy, where it's got Yuasa, it's got Yamamoto, it's got Shingo Natsume, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. And that's great. And I think that makes sense. You know, yeah, I know. I think you can also make. Yeah, no, never mind. I don't know, but I think it's a great, interesting argument to make, or a different exploration of trying to figure this out. And obviously, there's never going to be the super definitive answer. I think it'll always be based. And I do appreciate that you acknowledge this, that like Bebop got the most votes in large part because people know about that one. And yes, yes, it is up there for sure. But it's bolstered by many people voting for it because it was ran on Adult Swim so many times, and people are aware of that one, and so it gets voted on. So if we're going to go purely democratic, it's going to be a popularity contest, and its popularity was, in a way, artificially, well, not artificial, obviously, it was manufactured. You know, it was put in front of people and looped over and over. You could not avoid Cowboy Bebop. If you tried, not even if you tried. They're like, what is this cowboy? What's this obscure? Like, I can understand people not knowing almost any anime, except for some Ghibli films. Dragon Ball Z. I agree with your point about it was surprising that Dragon Ball Z is not on there, or Z and Dragon Ball Z. And maybe because it's like, or Sailor Moon, right? Sailor Moon's not on there either. And I think Sailor Moon would be a decent candidate as well, all things considered. But yeah, I don't know. I think I do really like the subject. It's interesting. It's really cool. Loved it. Satsuki The Savage. He had this video, 5 black AniTubers you need to watch now. And I had not heard of almost any of these guys, which is great. I love seeing videos like this, and then also trying to put them on Digest and broadcasting them out, because I just love other creators sharing other creators and things like that. The 5 creators that he talks about are pretty much all manga, like they're manga creators, but they're also like chapter reviewers, it seems to me at least, where they're kind of like, oh, this episode of this chapter coming out and talking about it. And if you like those kinds of perspectives, or are looking for that sort of up-to-date things, especially with One Piece, I think 3 or 4 of them were very much One Piece, which is like, okay, yeah, which is great. But I just love this, and seeing this emphasizing that, and not necessarily, not at all for the fact that they're black or anything like that. They just happen to be black, and that's like a catch-all. But he's mostly talking about their content and their perspective and what he takes out of them and their style, and praising for this and that reason. I love that, and it's nothing to do with race in that instance, which I really appreciate. I don't know, and not that I don't know how that comes off. I don't know, but I mean, it's not in it. I don't know. I just like that we're focusing on what somebody provides and not based on some other tangible quality that doesn't really matter to their content. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense or if that works. But like, yeah, I just I really appreciated giving other creators a platform, one of which had only 89 subs, which was great. And he was like, this is the creator that I wanted to make this video in the first place for. And all 5 of the creators that he had linked in the description, and I checked them out and looked at their kind of all the, as you do with a channel, looking through their videos and what they've posted and things like that. And the last one, yeah, King Nelly, I'm just double checking with these, King Nelly podcast definitely had something that I thought was the most interesting out of it, because not that the others weren't interesting in that, it's just that they were all very similar, and I don't watch as much chapter review content as Satsuki might. And this one also does do King Nelly does do chapter reactions, except he's doing a lot of different ones. Like he's doing Ippo, Maiden Abyss, Kingdom, Chihayafuru, Yankee-kun to Hakujo, Record Ragnarok, Witch Hunter, Kono, like literally almost a different one every single time, like almost every single video. And he's uploading like fucking crazy. He's uploaded like what, 6, 12, 18 videos in a week. It's crazy, he's just going absolutely hard on it, which is awesome to see. And there's these other videos, like his thumbnails are, I kind of wish that you can only tell what he's talking about based on the text on the side, but it's mostly just his face, and like I don't think he really does thumbnails, which is okay. But like you can't necessarily tell what he's talking about except by the title. But some of the ones that are more interesting, there's occasional ones where he just puts out a video, it's just the screen with his face, and it's just called shoplifting or truck-kun or dick riding or yours cool. And I think those videos I think were interesting, and something I would like, I actually want to get subscribed to this guy to kind of follow along with that, because I am subscribed to a lot of these chapter review guys, but I never talk about them, never, because I haven't caught up with One Piece or whatever they're talking about, you know what I mean? So I mean, I loved that Satsuki did this, and really happy to see that, and I did subscribe to at least one of them. Not but I think that's great. I love that sort of uplifting, positive recommendation, and broadening a community like that. I love that. It's great. Another thing that I listened to a lot, but not while I was editing so much, but because I ended up watching the VOD a lot more, because I just thought it was interesting. Also because it's on YouTube now. Thankfully, it got on YouTube before I started recording Digest, but I was watching this on Twitch, and so like I have to, or whatever. But like, this is Joey's first off the record installment. That is kind of a new stream series he's doing. And this is the conversation with Aaron Hansen, Egoraptor. And it was great. I loved it. It was very long. It was very, very long. And not much interaction with the chat so much. It was really just Joey's questions. And he does mention conversation. He does have conversation with. I'm pretty sure he's taking this from Fantano, which is fine. This digest is from fucking Fantano, dude. Like, hell yeah. Fantano's the fucking pioneer, man. And yeah, but that's great if it means that Joey's able to interview, and also the reach that Joey has. It's like, Egoraptor's this isn't the first time he's collaborated with Aaron. He's done a couple videos with him and doing with other creators and things. So like he could be doing this with like PewDiePie at some point. That'd be great. But I do like that it's separate from Trash Taste, where Trash Taste is very much of a podcast, kind of shooting the shit, and talking about, and sometimes there's topics, but like Joey had prepared specific questions of like, how did you get into rapping? And the question he wants to give to everybody who comes on the podcast, is how do you feel about turning your hobby into a job? Which is really juicy, and I especially appreciated hearing Aaron talk about it, especially Game Grumps. Like, he actually talked about, he mentions several times that he's like, I've never talked about this in public before, about like, and so it was a lot of kind of not breaking news in the same way, but like, if you know about his career and you enjoy his content, like there's some people who don't, fuck Aaron Hansen or whatever, fair. But like his perspective on Newgrounds and how much he was harassed there, and he's like, I get shit all the time for calling out the bad parts of Newgrounds, but he's like, it's important to talk about. And it got really deep. It got really, really deep in some points, and psychological stuff, and how Game Grumps was made out of spite, of like every time he had been told no by a lot of people, he's like, this is my fuck you to those people. And he realized only later on, after, when it wasn't as much about spite and it was surrounded by people who you were working with people who weren't there for spite, but he's like, oh shit, that's what I made this for. Realizing that internally, and then trying to work through those emotions. And he's like, there were years where I hated doing Game Grumps, and now I'm in a better place, and things like that. And that was just really interesting and just got really deep. And it's important. It's great to hear from somebody who's 35, who's been doing this for close to 20 years. The first online content he made was when he was 13. And so it's about 20 years at this point. But it's like his first like cartoon, I think, was when he was like 15 or something. But like a long time he's been creating on the internet and things. And so seeing his perspective, and also the success, and also, it's one thing to like having been doing it for that long, but also getting that much feedback and that much scrutiny, and being that high profile for so long. He does talk about like having said the N-word in previous content that he doesn't say now, and he's not proud of it and things, and reconciling with that. And he has been sort of canceled multiple times in the same, in kind of the internet dogpiling of him a lot of the time. He talks about that. And, it's just so insightful and interesting. And I think Joey does a great job with the rapport and listening to him and giving insight, and follow-up questions. And he's just really good at it. He fumbles a little at the beginning, right, with like the chat and, and they have a bit of playful banter and things. And there is a bit of like self-deprecation on his end, where he fully admits very kind of early on that Aaron's like an idol to him, and so looking up to him a lot and kind of having a bit of imposter syndrome or over reverence for this person. I can totally understand that. And Aaron, I think, plays it off really well. And he's like, I'm making time because I like you, because I want to talk to you specific, and that was really an interesting exchange of like, how do you find all the time? And he's like, well, I have people. It's like, I have people who, and then the schedule and Google Calendar is my friend and things like that. And it's just really raw, honest, and interesting, intimate, pretty much. It felt very intimate in that way. And it was very late for Aaron, like late at night, because of the time difference, and he had been drinking a lot. So he ends up getting really personal, and like, not like like TMI or something, but just like in a way that was just like, you never hear this in any of his other content that he's made, even like with Game Grumps or something, especially not in Game Grumps or something, because a lot of it was kind of about Game Grumps in a way, and taking a step back from that in a way. I just really enjoyed it. Love the conversation. It is very long, but like, I'd probably re-listen to it at some point. I really enjoyed it, and I wish it was. I was feeling kind of guilty, where like I've sort of had this opportunity almost with my podcast with AniTube T, and there's times where we've gotten kind of like a little deep or meta or whatever, but I don't have questions prepared is the difference, and I'm not like. Joey wasn't intending to go that deep, but I think because he had those questions, it kind of ended up that way. But like, I don't know, I don't create the same environment, so I don't get this sort of, but this is just unreal. I just really like this kind of conversation, and I'm happy to have something of that kind with Digest, but with AniTube T, I mean. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was wonderful. I'm really excited for Joey to keep doing this sort of thing, and I hope he seems to really enjoy it. So, looking forward to more. That was wonderful. And I'm gonna get the best of the week in my opinion. The one that I just kind of had the most fun with really is Veridis Joe's video on High Guardian Spice. Harassment isn't criticism, and he's been getting some shit about the video and things, and because he's kicking the hornet's nest here. He's really just going after all these people that talk shit about High Guardian Spice and kind of going after the creators, and I think he's being totally fair, honestly. But obviously, he, like a bulk of the hate that he's throwing is towards like Hirohei, so of course he's gonna get a bunch of shit for this. But like his wit and his really point, like not afraid to say anything, that he's just gonna get a lot of shit for, and totally like painting these guys as nerds and losers and and just really like unflattering kind of images of them and really poking fun of it. Like I kind of ate it up, honestly, because it really felt that way of, and it's specifically people. It's like you can have problems with the show, like that's fine as critic, but like being dicks about it and like the kind of things that he was talking about and the harassment here, he's just when he's like you deserve to get bullied almost kind of deal. And that was just kind of it was revelatory for me, who like I talk about people's content, but I don't want to like bash on people so much because I feel guilty. I feel remorse, and I don't have the kind of skin like Joe has, I think, and he's just so fucking brave to call these people out, honestly. So I just kind of enjoyed it vicariously as someone, because this would be considered commentary, like a commentary channel of sorts, but like Digest very much doesn't feel that way. It's almost toothless in a way, but it's in a regard of like, because this is meant to be like positive and constructive and like I want all these creators to succeed and hey, great job on that video, man, which you don't really get anywhere. I don't want to suck my own dick or anything, but like how many people are doing this? Come again. How many people are making videos about how good other people's videos are? Does that happen? I don't know. And it's clearly not very popular. No, I mean, I'm sorry. Now I'm just kicking myself in the dick, I guess. But no, I just love this video too much. And the fucking, oh my God, I never want to do this with Digest with right, because I don't want to set like a precedent or something. But God, this one fucking thing that he did, where like the one moment where I quote. He's like, epic fail. What are you, 12? Oh my God, it was so fun. And it was just like, oh yeah, get that bank, and like just railing on these guys. It was so fucking funny. I have to find it again. God. But he really gets into it, man. And I always really liked his humor. It's the kind of humor that's very similar to Toonerific Tariq, with the fucking the Charlie Brown stuff, like his cutaways and the sound bites and visual gags and things that he's referencing and just for humor. I wish I had that, man. God, I wish I had that. I try sometimes, but it just doesn't hit the same way, man. It's so good. I love that. There's no way I'm gonna find this.
Epic fail? What are you, 12?
Yeah, that's what it was. Oh my God. I'm just a coward, really. I think that's kind of more what it is. It's I don't have the stones to do this, really. And I just really enjoyed it and loved it. And I think it makes a lot of sense. I honestly fully agree with what he's talking about. Calling these people out, that they're just kind of doing this for money and for numbers and clout and things. And it's, ugh. Anyway, yeah, I enjoyed that video a lot. Thank you so much for making that. I loved it. Yup. That'll do it for this installment. I don't know what I was trying to do there. Thank you for this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great week. Yo, peace.